Grid, what is going on? Today, I've got Jeff Nydegger from Illinois with me. He's the CEO of Kendall Partners. And Jeff, thanks so much for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, glad to be here. Thank you.
Now, you and I have known each other for, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years now,
Right.
right? And I've been watching your business from afar. And what I want to do is introduce you to the Grid family and certainly deep dive on your business and deep dive on what you and Kevin have built. And how long has it been now? When did you start this business exactly?
Well, we started in the best time, which is 2007. So we're going into, if my math's correct, we just celebrated 16 years, and this will be our 17th year of this real estate journey.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
It's a big deal. Most businesses fail just within the first couple of years.
Yeah.
And so here you are, you started this business in 2007. What inspired you and Kevin to start this business in 2007, right? Because that was the throes of really like the worst real estate recession since the Great Depression.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's not an amazing story, I don't think, or maybe it is. I don't know. I think I got out of the military in 2006, so I spent 5 years in the Army right out of high school, and spent about 30 months overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan and doing some other training around the country. When I got out and redeployed, took a job here outside Chicago. I had always known Kevin because Kevin is my wife's first cousin. So there's the family owned aspect of that. We were talking about different things in real estate, and he had worked for the company that I took a job for. And we were kind of conspiring, if you will, about what ifs and how could we do this and type of thing. And I was only with the company about 6 months, and I said, I always wanted to get into real estate, read a few books, kind of the same books a lot of people read, the Flipping for Dummies and all the basic, entry level, that peak interest. And then I told Kevin all about it. I said, we should do it. And his personality is a little bit different than mine, which is great. And basically he said, well, why don't you go first? Which you don't have to tell me that often because I'm always usually the one to go first, which is fine. And so I did. I told my wife I'm going to start a real estate company, and she said, well, I believe in you. And she was very supportive, and I had a little bit of a plan. And so I started a company and bought a small house with Kevin while he was working full time. And then we made the pivot after buying a house, make a few bucks. And then we actually sold our second house, remodeled our second house during 2007, 2008, and we couldn't sell it quick enough. And it was like catching a falling knife. We lost about $55,000 on our second house. Kevin said to me, I can't afford this. I have to go back to work. Those are the actual words. And I said, I can't afford not to do this. So I said, this is, Kevin is a smart guy, went to college, spent a lot of money doing that. I did not. And so I said, this will be my education. We paid our family member back the money that we had borrowed and started doing short sales. If you remember those back when those became hot in 2008. And no one really knew what that was out here because it was kind of a new term. Everybody kind of knows now, but we got really good at negotiating debt and working with different institutions around here, and just loss mitigation. We were kind of on the forefront here. And did that for about 3 years and did hundreds of deals really with no money, helping homeowners out of a tough situation where we could end up negotiating and buying the house and immediately reselling. So we did an actual dry fund double close back when it was allowed, which worked great for all parties. And that kind of catapulted us into almost a decade of heavy remodel and kind of reconstruction. And then now we're into this direct to seller marketing, which we're on the forefront of blowing the top off of.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, and then we'll go back to the short sale business because very interesting path. And I know there's probably been several different iterations of your business because all businesses have to evolve in order to stay ahead, right, and grow. What does your business look like today?
The business today, there's nearly 20 of us, to include Kevin and I. I would put Kevin and I up in the owner's box, if you will, if you're looking at your traditional accountability chart. My role as the CEO, and we kind of talked about this, the visionary and person, really the innovator of the business. and Kevin's role more of that COO operational integrator. And so you've got Kevin and I kind of at the top, so to speak. And then we've got a couple of other people on the leadership team. Like I said, about 20 of us, and it's really become a marketing and sales business. So like any marketing sales business, you've got the marketing people and the marketing function, and then you've got about a department of 7, 8, 9 salespeople that's ever growing. And so now we're marketing directly to sellers, whether that be on the internet, on TV, direct mail, etc. Going to appointments, meeting with folks inside their house, and giving them an offer to purchase them for cash as is, hassle-free, that whole thing. And so we're all over the Chicago area. We buy in about 7 counties now.
Okay, cool. So hold that thought. Let's go back now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here you are, you and Kevin are doing short sales, right? Hundreds of them. And by the way, that's what fueled my business during that time as well.
Mm-hmm.
I ran this blog called Virginia Short Sale Advice, and literally people would call me, but I did it on the agent side of the business, where I would get people out of like a very difficult situation. And we bought a couple of those for our own portfolio. But for the most part, we just kind of got them out of that difficult situation. So what's interesting is that every market presents an opportunity, right? Every shift presents an opportunity. And as a business person, you have to recognize what those shifts look like and then pivot in order to really match the market. So let's talk about some of those pivots, right? So 2008, 2009, you guys were doing a lot of short sales. You were buying those assets. What was the next pivot in the business?
So that pivot from short sales back in 2010, late 2010, we looked at each other and said, hey, I think the market is kind of prime for some new inventory. When you go through all these short sales and you basically are negotiating and then double closing, you're never really touching the asset, not really adding any value besides sweeping it out and maybe putting an air filter in. That's a true story. We did lots of those where, you didn't add value. So you just took the asset, negotiated as deep as you could, and then resold it, right? But then we're looking at each other saying, man, if we just did a kitchen, if we just did a bathroom, if we just put a roof on, if we just removed the old pool, the house would be worth $25,000 more or $50,000 more, right? And so that's the nature of remodeling, the value add model. So we did that. So there was just 2 of us. We hired a contractor, and then over time that grew into a whole team. We had the vans, the tools, the assets, the trailers, the warehouse. We got big enough where in 2011, a local Home Depot had just opened up, and they basically brought their corporate officers into our conference room. And this is at a time where we were probably doing 40 houses a year of construction, reconstruction. They brought their corporate officers in and basically said, whatever we can do to keep your business, you guys have basically solely kept our local store in business over this hard time. True story. So much where they brought me and all of our employees Milwaukee toolkits, like the $400 or $500 kits. They brought them all for us and just stacked them up and said, whatever it takes, don't call anybody else. Not Build.com, not Lowe's or Menards or any of these other competitors. They said, work with us. So what that did for us at the time is we opened our warehouse up, actually, and they came in and had a program called the Optics program. And they would actually put a barcode on all of our top maybe 50 items that we'd purchase. Most of these houses got like an A, B, and C package or a silver, gold, and platinum package. We were doing so many, you couldn't really do a custom scope of work. In general, you would apply the same finishes to, whatever one you'd pick. So they came in and barcoded toilets and everything else. And every Tuesday and Friday, I believe, they'd back their semi up and reload our warehouse with their material. And then we'd buy it later. And that was kind of a cutting edge thing, I think, for around the country. They were really trying to work with guys like us that were doing that. So just to give you an idea of what we had a team and had a supervisor and had people in the field. And this was us buying everything on the market. So maybe 5% a year were purchased direct from seller, whether it be a mailer or a short sale that was lingering, but the majority of them were found on MLS. And we said, if we do X, Y, Z, it'll be worth more, just your standard flipping. And that's what we did. And we did that up until about 2018. Got hurt on a few where we lost $70,000 on one, and then about 3 weeks later, lost 70,000 on another in the same town. It's a well-known town, Wheaton, Illinois, out here outside of Chicago. And we just caught the market wrong. We bought the wrong house, caught the market wrong. It happens, especially when you do volume, but we weren't anticipating that to happen. And $140,000, let's be honest, that's big to a small business.
It's huge.
And so I think for that reason, that didn't take us out of business. We had some cash. We had some multifamily properties that were kicking off some pretty good money. We had a lot of equity in those companies. That's when I first kind of met you, and we started talking about multifamily. And, so what that did for us was really you talk about the word pivot. That was our word. So we actually pivoted we actually came up with a new business plan and said, why aren't we going direct to seller? It's always really worked well for us. Our business coach at the time said, let me get this straight. You can send out an envelope to someone, for $1. You can send a card out for $1 and, buy their house and make 80 grand. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, how many do you send out a month? And I'm like, we send a lot out. Well, how many is that? I said, we send about 60 letters a month out. He looks at us like, so that's a true story.
Jeff, let me ask you a question. Let me go back, right? You guys lost $55,000 on your second deal, right? And I didn't touch on this enough. I want to go back because that's a big deal. Kevin said, hey, I can't afford to lose this guy. And you were like, I can't afford not to do this, right? Where did that come from? Like, where was it that you were like, this is it? It's all or nothing. I'm going to figure this out. Where did that come from?
Well, that's a deep question. Two things there, I think. And this is what makes Kevin and I unique as a business partnership. And what makes us strong, I think, is a little bit of a difference of opinion, difference in experience. So Kevin knew that my personality was not really a go big or go home. I wouldn't say that, but I would say that, my wife would describe me as the life's too short guy. I think because of my time overseas, and Rob, you and I talked about this when we were sitting on the beach in Tulum, Mexico, kind of like this mentality of like, when you're in combat or in a firefight or whatever you're doing, and then you're back, that's life and death. And now people would say they're in life and death situations when they're in a financial situation, whether that be good or bad or whatever, mostly bad. And I would say, well, not really. Your life's actually not on the line. So I think I've applied that a little bit to the decisions that I make and said, well, I don't want to be flippant with my money or your money or whoever's money I'm borrowing or anybody's relationship. We take that very serious, but at the same time, whereas Kevin might be a little more reserved, quite a bit more reserved than I am. He's the risk manager. And I'm a little more like, if this doesn't work, then what? And let's play that out, where he doesn't really think that way. I'm always looking at the upside and he's always looking at the downside, and not because he's pessimistic. It's just his personality. And that's really what's made us strong. Cause, Chris Arnold, as you know, mutual buddy of ours, he said that Kevin's the tether to your balloon. You're always looking to fly off into outer space, and he's like tying you up around a chair somewhere.
It's interesting because I really believe that partnership, especially in the business that you guys run, like that, you need that. Mark Beckett, who's my business partner, actually is one of my partners in Grid. He is my, I always say my risk mitigator.
Yep.
Right. I need him as a risk mitigator because I'm like kind of a little Richard Branson, like, screw it, just do it. Right. Let's do it. He's like, whoa, time out. What does this actually mean? Right. And so I have to talk through and justify and come up with multiple exit plans. And I think anybody listening, if you could have a partner, doesn't need to be a business partner. It could be your spouse. It could be a friend, but somebody that to bounce ideas off of, just to make sure that you're staying on track, because sometimes left to our own devices, it doesn't always work out as planned.
And I think right there is where it's at, in my opinion. I think Kevin and I travel 3 or 4 times a year with a group called the Collective Genius. And we're working with, we're partnering with a lot of the nation's largest real estate investors. And it's a very unique group of men and women. Anyway, I think after a couple of years of doing that, people have really on their own identified that how special, they've gone out of their way to say how special they feel the relationship that Kevin and I have.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talk about each other well. I think that we do things together, and it could be houses that we happen to be talking about real estate. But I looked at Kevin a few years ago and said, buddy, I love you, man. I mean, we're business, we're partners, we're family. I don't really care what we do necessarily. I like what we're doing, but I would go, sell mugs if that's what we'd like to do. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. We like to do business together. So I think that, maybe this is helpful to income flip people, the grid people. I don't know. I think to evaluate someone that you could do business with, if you can find someone that you think that you could work well with long term, again, as I've told you, that's kind of my philosophy is like, you never know, but you do your homework. It's like getting married, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin and I always joke that Kevin's my business wife.
Mm-hmm.
Well, kind of. I mean, I spend 7 to 8, 9, 10 hours a day with him for the last 16 years. You could argue, but that's more than I've spent with my wife over that time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we do things well together, and we bounce things off each other well. I would say the one thing that we do really well is that when we argue, if there is any bantering or arguing, we don't really leave the room mad. I've never really left the office upset at Kevin. It's
Mm-hmm.
not because we don't argue. We don't avoid conflict. That's not my personality. I kind of go right into that. He avoids it a little bit, and I kind of go with my head and shoulders down.
Mm-hmm.
But I think doing it together is much more fun, much more enjoyable as you're looking at opportunities. But this lifelong relationship that you could have in business to do what you just mentioned that you do with yours, bouncing ideas off each other, man, it's powerful. And it
Yeah.
is a little bit different than just having an actual COO position or another position in the organization. It's a different. The skin in the game is different. It's just a different relationship. And so I would
Yeah.
encourage anyone, if they're thinking about doing it or maybe they're stuck, is to really say, how can how do these multiple strands of a rope get so strong, as they're twisted? I think that two become one. It's a powerful thing, and I think people should really investigate it. Not every partnership is made to work, but I think it can really be powerful if done right.
100%. Let's go back to the back-to-back losses, 75,
Mhm.
75, right?
Appreciate you bringing
Um,
that up.
sure, sure. Well, let's go back to that because that's where relationships are tested, right? That's where teams are tested. Um, that's when models are tested, right? Um, let's talk a little bit about that. You guys said, okay, let's change this model. We're going to go more direct to consumer, but you also talked about having purchased assets in the multifamily space that I suspect were paying you guys as well. And part of the income flip journey is helping people understand how to take their active income and convert it to passive income. Because, you know, if you guys got hit by a bus tomorrow, if you're in that production mode,
Yes.
uh, that business kind of could die unless you really organize it like a business. And we're going to deep dive a little bit on that.
Hmm.
But buying assets that pay you back over time is really ultimately one of the big goals for us, on this podcast to help people understand what have you and Kevin done in that respect. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So 2000 and let's say 16, around that era. So we had this construction machine kind of running. We were probably doing right around 45 or 50 houses a year. It's a couple $1 million construction business. So really, it was not a marketing business at all. You could
Mm-hmm.
always say that it's a sales business because we're buying and selling, but it was not a marketing business. Again, acquisition wise, everything was bought in MLS. We would remodel everything, permitted, north side Chicago. So we're in that $300,000 to $600,000 range,
Mm-hmm.
um, in terms of sale price. And that was the business. And I'm sure, as you know, permitting and cities and red tape, et cetera, it becomes, you got to be committed to that type of business.
Mm-hmm.
And the red tape doesn't normally go away. If anything, it gets thicker or wider or deeper or whatever. And so at the time, I was looking on MLS, looking for other multifamily opportunities, because Kevin and I, way back in 2008, took a course. I think we went out to Cincinnati and took a course on multifamily. I thought it was great. We always wanted to get into it. We actually didn't know how. We knew it took a lot of money. I mean, that's what we thought.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we were looking, and I found this opportunity. It's a small building. I think it was 14 units, and it seemed like the price per unit was just unbelievable. So long story short, we bought the building and took the NOI on it from about 50,000 to 115,000 in about less than a year and a half. And self-managed it, which is really a small building like that. All that could, the management would kill it otherwise. And so during this time, you mentioned a couple losses we had. We had those losses, but we had so much equity in these multifamily buildings. We actually had another 10 unit. So we had 24, right around 30 units, and had a ton of equity in these buildings. Ran the NOI up basically as high as it could be, and looked at each other and said, "Hey, we were hoping these would become assets that would be generational type. They just seemed like really good buildings, easy to manage, if you will. We did the smart thing. We're thinking about the long term, so we did the repairs and improvements that were not the fluff and buff type stuff. We actually really rebuilt them well. But we were sitting on about $500,000 of equity between the two. And while our core business, Kendall Partners, was kind of not doing well, you mentioned that about you've been through that a few times. We said, you know what, we're not going to be, cash poor over here and be cash flow rich. Not that it's not nice to make $10,000 a month, but when your core business that has people and operational overhead, et cetera. So we decided to sell, and so we took it to the market where I thought was kind of peak pricing in 2019. Multifamily was really the buzzword. I think it still is, but it was really hot then. And we sold both of those like within a day. Not actually, but we sold one sight unseen to a company out of Maryland, and sold another one to a local investor, and really cashed out that money that was locked up, and took that and really plugged that back into a really hard pivot for Kendall Partners into the direct seller marketing. That really was from a transition from rehab and construction heavy flipping business to a little bit of multifamily exposure to no multifamily exposure, all the cash coming back in and saying, let's go to the market and figure out how to be a really good marketer. And that's what we're doing today. That's
awesome.
The journey there.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about being a really good marketer. Went on your website, love it, by the way, sent it to my business partner. I'm like, this, right? That's just what I wrote. I said this. So when you start deciding to go to direct to consumer, you have to get really good at understanding all the metrics associated with your marketing spend, understanding conversions, understanding making sure that your salespeople are converting properly. So let's deep dive a little bit about that, right? What does your model look like? You said radio, direct mail, right? What's the spend? What are you guys trying to accomplish?
Let me back into that 2016 era, and I'll just tell you how much of a marketer I wasn't. I think this is important because I'm okay saying that I've made some stupid calls in my life. Maybe not stupid, but just immature for the business. The call back then was like, why do we even have a website? We're buying and selling on MLS. And so you're remarketing on the open market. We took a turn and actually in 2014 put our properties on our website, kind of a coming soon, and we're wanting to drive interest at the time. I didn't actually know how to drive the interest, but I had a guy in the office here that did a really good job of putting our coming soon, and then he'd share the link on Facebook, and that's about as the depth of our marketing at the time. And then I said, why do we even have the exposure of the MLS, or the of our website? I don't even think we need a website. And so I bring that up to say, I was looking at the P&L and I'm saying, gosh, we're spending $5,000 a year in marketing. Why is that line item so big? Keep it in context, right? This is maybe a $1 million business at the time.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, why are we spending $5,000? This just seems extreme. So 2019, we sold those multifamily buildings, brought this cash in, and going back to what I just mentioned, 15 minutes ago about my business coach at the time saying, wait a second, you send a letter out for $1 and can make $100,000. That was an actual story. Everybody that's listening is going to say, well, why aren't you sending out 600 letters or 600 a week? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was trying to get at. And maybe I was a little bit slow at the time. So fast forward to 2019, we went the traditional route of, going to pay-per-click ads. And so learning that business a little bit. We had hired a data, kind of a data manager, if you will, and then a graphics person. And they kind of sat in the office. And we came up with these plans around running our own traffic, social media, YouTube, etc. It was a good experiment. The experiment ultimately failed. One of the guys was really good. The other guy was not so good. Just that's a whole different conversation about hiring. But what we wanted to do was run our own marketing in-house. And I always thought that as much as I read about marketing, you should control your own. And so I wanted to be really close to the information. So we were spending $3 or $4 a month in pay-per-click and direct mail. And I thought, wow, we're going to spend $50,000 this year in marketing. That's 10x what I just mentioned. Fast forward maybe 21, we're spending about $25,000 a month. And I thought, oh my gosh, I never thought we'd be spending that. And so I was always looking at it as an expense and saying, how can we afford to? And instead of saying, I'm sure you know what I'm going to say is, how can we afford not to? And it's really not an expense. It's like anything else that you would do with money. If you expect to deploy money and it to come back with more attached to it, it's really an investment. And it has nothing to do with spending money. Yes, the activity is that you spend it, but you're investing in something that you believe, right, without a reasonable doubt, at least after some testing, that it should bring back what you want. In this case, we were marketing for motivated sellers to specific lists via direct mail, putting our ads out there on pay-per-click, Bing, et cetera. And then we became really good at it. Transitioning into 2022, we were spending about $65,000 a month. Drives about 200 leads a month. And there's a lot going on there, right, in your own little funnel as to what that provides. As of today, we spend about $110,000 a month, which is absolutely crazy, from being a guy that says we don't even need a website to having multiple websites. Lots of lead generation going on between really pay-per-click. We're in TV. We have not done radio. I know you said radio. I haven't done that yet. That's coming soon. So you get this face on TV, saying, "Hey, I'd love to work with you and buy your house." Veteran-owned company, and then we do about 70,000 pieces of direct mail a month, and that continues to fluctuate. But that's kind of been the foundation of our direct-to-seller business, has been direct mail. It's a longer cycle. It's a lot more predictable, though. But again, I hate to say it, embracing the long game, but that is how we think about it. When we think about relationships, when we think about marketing, we don't really do stuff and say, you know what, 3 weeks later, didn't work. Now, there has been that, but if you believe in something that's been proven and it's viable, and you're willing to invest the money, then we look at it and say, we're not willing to look at a marketing opportunity for less than maybe 6 months, because here's what happens. We still get deals that we buy today. We just had one last week that came from a postcard that we sent during COVID in 2020. And when we ask, to confirm the postcard, because we try and get really good attribution, the lady had said, I hung on to it until I was ready. Now, I'm sure we sent multiple cards to her after that, but she hung on to the one that she liked the most, or just the one and threw out the rest and didn't associate us with the others. But she actually hung on to the refrigerator. And that's what we all want as marketers, and to hang on to it for when the right time, because I believe it's, timing is everything, right? The wrong message to the right time doesn't matter, but the right time, right message, boom, there's your marketing.
Okay, so that's a fascinating story, because you're going from zero marketer in your brain. Like, some people are just born marketers. So you're going from like zero marketing, don't have any value associated with it. You see it as an expense, to spending over $100,000 a month in marketing. I mean, that is a massive leap forward psychologically, a massive leap forward from a business perspective, just kind of understanding that, in order to feel confident, you and Kevin must have really drilled down to understand what the return on investment look like, right? So
Yes.
you're getting 200 leads that come in a month in your funnel. How, like, right now you're buying what, 15,
Yeah,
20 houses a
18 to
month?
20. Yep. Yeah, we're
Okay.
pushing on that 20 pretty quick here.
And what's typically your average profit per?
We're north of about 35,000.
Okay. Okay. So you guys ran the math and you said, hey, our client acquisition cost, right? Our CAC is X. Have you guys, do you know what that is? By any chance, have you nailed that down?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. At this spend, I think you could go deeper than where we're at, but not much in terms
Okay.
of attribution. We
Mhm.
measure lots of things, so we're looking at total spend, total investment, and so we're deploying that between the channels that I mentioned of TV, pay per click, direct mail, soon to be radio, probably soon to be billboards. Again, that's more of
Mhm.
an advertising bucket,
Mhm.
brand
Mhm.
awareness bucket than it is just a lead generation tool. But to get your brand and your face everywhere, you kind of got to be everywhere to saturate. So I know what it gets us now to spend about 100 grand. We can buy about 20 houses.
Mhm.
Average cost per acquisition, or cost per deal is what we kind of call it.
Mhm.
CPD would be just less than 5,000. So, and I
Mhm.
think a good number. So if you're acquiring for less than 5 and making 35, you're in that
Mhm.
6, 7x range. I don't know that it holds right there, for all the things we talked about 20 minutes ago, with the market being where it's at. Um, it's demanding a little bit more revenue per deal,
Mhm.
which is higher than it was last year, which is higher than it was the year before.
Mhm.
So you got to make hay while the sun shines. I'm not complaining for the return,
Mhm.
but I think in any marketing business, two things need to be talked about. You mentioned one, which is the cost per acquisition. So that, let's just say that's $4,500. The other thing that I want to know is, so you've got your return on ad spend there based on your $35,000 per deal. But what else I want to measure, and we measure very close per marketing channel, is the what we call the lead to profit. So
Mhm.
really, it's the cash conversion cycle,
Mhm.
because I think you need to measure both in order to make educated decision to put more in where. So if I go to my marketing department now and say, hey, let's increase the budget $25,000 this month, where should we spend it? They automatically know, well, how do we want, are we looking for leads and revenue now? Or are we looking for something in the future? Which you can get both, I think, if you know your time. Direct
Mhm.
mail, you spend money now. Letters go out in 2 weeks. You get a call in 3 weeks. You sign a contract in a month, maybe at 45 days, and then you add 50 days onto that. That time frame gets extended.
Mhm.
Interesting part about like a PPC or a pay per click, a Google Ads, you can spend money today actually and get a lead today, go to an appointment today and buy a house. Essentially you can get it under contract today and buy it in, let's say, 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So under the same sales model, you can effectively make your 35 grand, in 50 days versus 95 days. So the money isn't equal.
Mhm.
And so I think, we're pretty deep into that, and we know those numbers per channel, the cash conversion cycle, which again, we call lead to profit, from the time the lead comes in to how quickly we can make money.
What dashboard are you using to track all of this? Do you guys have a dashboard? Have you created one?
Oh yeah. So we've got, so for about 8 or 9 years, we've been using Salesforce, and it
Mhm.
was extremely underutilized. It was actually called Property Base, which is a
Mhm.
tool that runs on
I remember.
Salesforce. It's for agents.
Mhm.
We custom built it for more of the agent investor, because we have owned a brokerage for 10 years. I'm not licensed, but we've owned that. So we needed both to track the property and the sale through MLS. We've now pivoted over the last 3 to 4 years to Salesforce Enterprise, and that is probably 25% of our marketing and data conversation is around how to build that out better.
Mhm.
So we're very intentional. We'll spend 150,000 bucks this year alone, just continuing to build out. And I see that forever.
Mhm.
It's not like, in my opinion, for our business, as we continue to grow and get better, I don't know that it's a one and done. You just and that's relative to anybody's business. Well, you don't need to spend $150,000 if the business is not, very big, but that's certainly an investment to make things better. So we've built out dashboards to look at return, and then we're still using Google Sheets, for a lot of input and data. There's some AI wrapped around that kind of can pull information out and throw it into other places, and Google Data Studio, which is now Google Looker, that type of thing. And we're working on building out Plecto at the current time, so we can take our Salesforce information and make it a little more, we can gussy it up a little bit, make it pretty through Plecto, and then redisplay it on dashboards throughout the office. So currently it's 95%, 90% Salesforce.
Awesome. So what does the team look like today? Because this is a machine. You're explaining a machine. Tell me what the team looks like today, and where you're looking to take it.
Sure. So we've got a team of it's 17 or 18 now, and I should know the number. We've actually hired about 1.5 people every quarter for the last 3 years. So you can do the math on that. So we continue to add. It's actually gone up a little bit more. We actually hired 2 people last 2 weeks ago today. So because of the nature of the business, right, it's sales and marketing. Now this might not apply to somebody that's in Lexington, Kentucky, but being in the suburbs of Chicago, buying in 7 counties, real estate is a interesting business because it's not an attorney state technically, but being in the collar counties of Cook County and Chicago, everybody uses an attorney. The reason I say that is because we have what we call a deal manager. It's really a transactions manager. Any real estate business has it at scale, but in our business, really it's a contract to close. So from our purchase contract all the way through our sale contract, we've got a team of right now 2 ladies in the office that do an awesome job. One being a seller point of contact. So as soon as we sign a purchase agreement with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, that gets handed off to her. She calls Mr. and Mrs. Jones and then sets the table for how we're moving forward. It's very clear. We do that the same day, a lot of times within the same hour. That way sales, in this case, can go back to the front of the line, if you will, and go do more of what they do best. So that's the transaction side and the operation side. That's where Kevin lives, my business partner, in terms of, as you can imagine, it takes a lot of money. There's a lot of money moving in and out, buying houses, wiring funds, et cetera, earnest money. So there's a lot of cash flow management that works out, and we're always looking out about 6 weeks now. We have to stretch that out as we continue to buy. We've got about 50 properties under contract right now, so it's just a lot going on.
That's a lot of money.
There's a lot to predict, and we actually close on every house. We don't. I should make that distinction. We don't wholesale. Technically, the activity, I guess you could say, is a wholesale activity, but we actually buy every house and get title. We pay for the seller's closing costs, et cetera. And then we give our buyer, our purchaser, clean title. So they're actually a very clean recorded transaction there. I've got a marketing person in the office. He's kind of the marketing and data manager, this person that I'm talking about that knows the information really, really well. So if you walk in his office and ask him what's the best performing channel, he'll tell you, and the time and the investment and the cost per deal. Even though the blended is $4,500 per deal, it might be $6,500 for PPC. It might be $2,500 for direct mail, et cetera. I've got an operations manager who's really a COO kind of in training. Great guy. His name's Glenn. And he runs a lot of the people, a lot of the onboarding, a lot of the hiring, a lot of the technology with our marketing person. Of course, I've got Kevin, myself, and then I've got a whole sales team and a sales manager. I should go back and say that Michelle on the transaction side has been with us 10 years. And then Aaron, my sales manager, has been with us almost 11 years. And then he's got a team of about 8 people between lead managers. So when the phone rings and Mrs. Jones is on the other end, and she wants information, lead managers their job is to really answer questions and then set the appointment. Purely, that's all they do over the phone. Set expectations, and then hand that off to our acquisitions manager, so our house buyer, and we have 4 of those, and they're out going between 2 and 3 appointments a day, and that's kind of a sweet spot for us. Our goal would be to contract 100 houses in third quarter here. So that's really it. And we've got a couple people in the field that run around. As you can imagine, when you own 50 or 60 houses, it's a lot to manage. Especially we get this thing in Illinois called deep freeze. And so You got to winterize properties and you'll make sure things are, utilities are turned on, et cetera. And they do final walkthroughs and are really an outward facing customer success person too, because they're doing final walkthroughs of the seller and, completing that last little bit of the transaction so we can close. And that's the team. So you got a team of I think it's 18 now, and we'll probably be here at 20 pretty quick.
Jeff, are you guys then not renovating the houses?
Yep. So on the construction side, that would be under the operations side of the house. So operations manager with our field manager, they actually, instead of us doing all the construction in-house now, we actually use subcontractors. So we've probably got a handful of 3 or 4 closely held subcontractors that we just use every house.
Yep.
And then we've got maybe 2 or 3 general contractors that can do it all. That, we would always sub out the carpet and the flooring. We get a pretty good deal on that at our volume, appliances, et cetera. And the contractor do what they do best, remodel and renovate. But anymore, Rob, if we put in more than $30,000 into the house, I'm wondering why. We just don't do that anymore. Not that we won't, and not that if the market needed us to do that, we wouldn't do it. But right now, it's really cleaning everything out, making it marketable. And then as we take things to the MLS, which is, I would say right now, about 80% of the houses we sell are going to be sold on the market. The other 20% we're going to buy immediately and sell immediately to an investor. And then they're going to be the ones that do what we used to do. They're going to put the 80, 90, 120,000 bucks in and take it all the way to the top and sell that move-in ready product, where ours is more of a value add for the most part product.
Got it. Totally makes sense. Yeah, you are increasing the speed of your cash as it kind of flows through the business, right? You want to be in and out quickly. You want to polish what I would call polish the penny. You want to give the market inventory, which it doesn't currently have.
Totally.
Right? You monetize that and you focus on what you do best, which is you're a marketing business, right?
Yes.
And you really you crush that piece. A lot of people don't understand that, right? They get into the wanting to make it look absolutely drop dead gorgeous to get maximum value, but there's a lot of money that goes out, and it's hard to scale a business like that. In fact, I've seen a lot of large home buyers in our area scale, and they have all the in-house crews, they've got all, they do all of it themselves. They scale, and then they realize, man, this is complex, this is really hard, and then they end up coming back and focusing more on kind of like the wholesaling, wholesaling kind of piece of the business, right? And maybe they'll renovate some, and take it to full max value, but for the most part, they're like, no, we're a marketing business, right? I think that's important for people to kind of understand. And
I do too. And I think if you want to do something at whatever you think scale is, I think that's relative. I think that's a sexy word that people like to use. And I don't think it's applied equally or evenly to every business. If you buy and sell 10 houses and want to go to 15, that might be scale for you. Especially if those are $200,000 remodel jobs. That's a big business, right? That's a lot of work, and you might make $150,000 on a house. You don't need to do 100 houses or want to do 100 houses. So we're pretty careful to benchmark what scale is, your business versus mine, my business versus the next guy's. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's part of being what we're trying to be is a smart marketer, a smart business. I think my job I know my job as the CEO innovator is to be a really good predictor. So I don't just look at information and know, and especially with as long as we've been doing it, and just assume that it's always going to be how it is today. From being in the real estate business for a long time as well, the market changes. It's not if, it's when. And I'm not trying to be a timing expert, but I'm always looking at the information. You mentioned we're down on inventory about 40%. So are we, right? It's really the same to the Midwest market. Yes, we bring new inventory to the market, which is good. Most of these houses haven't been marketed or for sale publicly for 10, 20, 30 years, because we're buying a lot of times from estates or Mrs. Jones, right, that hasn't sold or bought a house for 40 years. But we're looking at all those things because when the market shifts and when we start feeling that pinch, by the way, we felt that when rates went from 2.5% to 6% in 7 months. I think everyone felt that kind of, that stalemate. It was kind of a gridlock for a while where everyone's kind of waiting. So we're looking and saying, how do we might pivot now to more of our sales going back to investors. But again, everything, in my opinion, in this business, in especially in residential real estate, is subject to the market. I mean, it's all subject to the market, but if the buyers dry up and there's lots of sellers and it's a supply and demand issue, it's going to become hard for anybody in the business because my inventory flow goes to investors. And if they're not buying because there's no buyers for them, then everything's just at a stalemate. Now, that doesn't last forever because usually something frees up and it usually ends up being price and that comes down, but that doesn't happen overnight. Prices don't change, 10% in a week, not typically. Might change 10% over a year, but that would be pretty significant. So I think it's just watching the market. We've got a team now, so we've got significant overhead. We don't take that lightly. We don't hire people flippantly. Again, playing the long game, we look at people that are their core values, they're going to want to be here for a long time. And we're very cautious of the market because it's going to move again, which will provide inventory opportunity for some, and it's going to provide hard times for others. It's just the way it always works.
Jeff, what are your core values? Kendall Partners core values.
Well, we've got 4, and integrity being number 1. So if, and we do really hire and fire based on core values. I've only had the fire part off of core values once. And that was really no one else's fault but my own. It wasn't even the person's fault that was working here. They kind of slipped through the cracks, and I chose I did what I think a lot of CEOs or hiring managers do, and they hire for performance and not for core values. And I think you've got to find that middle ground. And I went more on the performance side and kind of thought that I might be able to change the person's personality and behaviors, and that's a hard road. So integrity, commitment, humility, and then growth. That's who we would want to work here. That's who we want to stay here. And we really do focus in on those over and over again to make sure that, hey, if this doesn't line up with who you are, then it's probably not a good fit. I think that I think the way you see those core values come out is not just in the halls of your own office, but if you look at the credibility that we've worked really hard on building through Better Business Bureau and 220 reviews on Google, and you take out those keywords, you're going to see some of those. That's what our team does. They do a really good job of representing the company well, and that comes outward facing. People say, you guys you do the right thing, and we'll choose to do that over profit.
I saw the language woven into your website, and then I saw it woven through the reviews, so it's consistent, right? I think it's important for people to hear when you build a marketing engine, you also need to know what you stand for and how you're going to position yourself in the marketplace against all the competition, because you guys, you've got a lot of competition in your area, right? We're talking about all the different competitors that have come in. Some have done well, some maybe not so well, but you got to find your voice in the marketplace, right? And it's evident, actually, when I went through your website, that you found your voice based on your core values. Can you give any guidance or advice to anybody regarding that when it comes to them building out their marketing, their brand, or their voice, right, to the marketplace?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think just establishing your core values. I think you may have some, but as you grow a team, are they the same for everyone else? Actually. And I think that if you're growing a team, whether it be from 3 to 5 or 5 to 10 or even bigger than what I have, a lot of companies are much larger. They know their core values. And I think that it's different for me. This is personally, I don't love the the 2-paragraph mission statement that hangs in the hall. No one reads it. No one can recite it. No one can remember it, pieces of it. But I think that if you do a core values exercise and you write down your top 3 people that mean the most to you in your life, and then, you put their names on a piece of paper, and then you say, why are they the most meaningful people in your life, right? Pull out a few words, a few attributes as to what might make them the most important. And then you come up with this core values exercise. It's really powerful to do as a team. And then you might come up with 3 or 4. I wouldn't do more than probably 5, maybe, because it's how many core values can you actually have. But I think once you have that, and then you build around that, every town hall that I give every Tuesday of the month, first of the month, we go over our core values, and we just make sure everybody's on the same page with all that. But after you do that, you have a purpose statement, and you know who you want to be to the market, who you are and who you aren't. You talked about being consistent. There's just certain things we won't do. So as much as I mentioned the word long game and being consistent, I would say if you asked our team without me present, they would say the same thing. They want to do what's right and build something for the long term. And I think that they go home at night feeling good about what they've accomplished. And I think that's what you want. People come to work for a paycheck, but the statistics say they come mostly for an emotional paycheck. We all need to make money, but they want to be loved and heard and listened to, and ask them for input. And so I think you have that. I think you can put anything you want on a website, but if that lines up with your credibility and what people are actually saying about you in the marketplace, then I think you've won. Now you've got to maintain it, though. Now you've got to maintain a reputation. And I'd rather continue to build our reputation the right way, and knowing that we may lose some. There's a lot of shady operators in the market, in your market, my market, et cetera. And I'm okay losing those battles because we'll win in the end by doing the right thing. So,
Jeff, let's touch quickly. I've got 2 questions here. Let's touch quickly on the operational business rhythm. You talked about your town hall meetings, first Tuesday of every month. Is that right?
Yep.
What other operational systems have you put in place to keep the business rhythm consistent, to keep everybody on the same page?
We started in 2019, and this was kind of our journey. If you remember, 25 minutes ago, we talked about the multifamily properties we had. I came across a book that many people have heard of called Traction. And I read it 2 years prior to that, I would have put it back on the shelf and said, that's a great book. I read it at the time, and because of those properties, Rob, that we lost that money on, I was really searching. I was searching my soul, really, and for Kevin as well. We were kind of struggling, and I really felt the onus on me as the CEO visionary. It's always been my strength to kind of solve the problems. I'm the big problem solver. I'm the big relationship person. And I just couldn't figure out what we were going to do next, because we couldn't really afford to continue to do what we do. And I've never loved that. That's why we actually loved the word pivot, and that became the 2019, 2020 mantra. It was kind of a themed year of pivot or die. We actually called it pivot to profit. So at the time we read Traction, I asked Kevin to read it because I wanted his thoughts on it. He heard something in the book differently than I did, which is good, right? Because he's got a different brain than I do. I knew exactly who I was. And in EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, right, they talk about, who you are to the business. It lined up well with us because I've got a business partner, and clearly one of us was the innovator and one of us is the integrator, right? And or the visionary, I guess EOS calls it. And I was the visionary, and Kevin's the one that does it and drives it home. So through that, we developed and worked through EOS with a coach, hired an implementer, and did that for about 2 years. Since then, we've moved on to another system that we use. But basically, we do have an operating system throughout the business. So at least there's, we've got process maps and charts. If you wanted to know how we market direct to seller, I've got a process map that if you put it on the wall would probably be 4 feet long, from a new lead to a set appointment to a contract, yes, no, maybe so. And it's built out for anyone to see. So we've got our core process maps. There's weekly meetings. They're an operations meeting right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a cadence to when everybody gets together. Everybody comes in, shares their best business and best personal. That would be a takeaway from EOS.
Mm-hmm.
In a business when it's going a million miles an hour, how do you stay aligned?
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to do that when you do a corporate company party every 6 months. It's hey, I haven't seen you since April. I don't want that. And so one of the ways I've really tried to lead our leadership team, who I've got four others on the leadership team, is to make sure that we do our the best we can do in each department, operations, sales, et cetera, by making sure that we're very in tune with what everybody else is doing in their lives. So we want to know, like, if you ask me how many kids we have represented throughout Kendall Partners, I know the number. It's 40.
Hmm.
We have 40 kids represented. And the reason that's important, I know everybody's anniversary. I want them to know that we care about their lives, because we do. It is the right thing to do. So when somebody has a baby or has a surgery or has grandmother that dies, we want to do our best to be involved and support them. And we use Google Chat. And so you've got all these Google Chat groups, I guess. And the amount of conversation that happens hourly or by the minute during the day is pretty spectacular. A lot of bantering, a lot of competitive memes, I guess you'd say, going back and forth, which is fun. We love the competitive nature of the company, but it is not a cutthroat. I don't want to say your typical sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going back to the hiring the performer and not having the core values. It's the high performer, low trust. We really want the high performer, high trust, if you can find it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And what it's created is a great culture of people that love each other and give each other hugs and, hey, how can I help? And listen to each other. And the cool part is now, Rob, from all the reviews used to be about me, and I'd go out and get them and get the video testimonials. They don't even mention Jeff anymore, which is fantastic. And I say that a lot because it really goes back to the team being empowered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't micromanage. We set the expectation and then let them go. And then we
Mm-hmm.
test for negative impact. Right. And then
Mm-hmm.
we look at it again and say, okay, that didn't work. Let's adjust fire. But I want to get out of the way and let our people be rock stars and love what they're doing, and then pay them accordingly. Right. I think they're compensated well with plenty of upside and no ceiling.
Jeff, I noticed when I went on your site, you have a site that's like Jeff buys houses, I think, right? Is that what it is?
JeffBuysYourHouse.com. Yep.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Like, you guys decided to kind of go through, you have multiple channels. How many different websites? That's just more of a curiosity than
Yeah.
anything else.
JeffBuysYourHouse.com is new as of 2021, I believe, maybe 2022. That was really started only because Kendall Partners is a brand that we started, almost 20 years ago, but it really doesn't say what we do. If anything, it sounds like an attorney's firm, and I am not an attorney. I'm a non-attorney spokesperson, but no. No, so we actually went with a brand that was very consistent and it was clear in the messaging.
Mm.
So Jeff Buys Your House is really, it all falls under the covering of Kendall Partners.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an outward facing brand that really is a TV brand. So we're on PPC. We're obviously backing that up or backing our TV up with pay-per-click. So that is one funnel, but it all comes to Kendall Partners. So when you call Jeff Buys Your House, you're getting Kendall Partners, and we make that clear that, hey, we're actually, our buying entity is Kendall Partners, and you can look at our credibility here. Kendall Partners is now obviously the operational entity. It's an S corporation, but we really wanted to brand ourselves, and so in the title, people can know exactly what it is. And so as we go to billboards or go to radio, it's catchy, and I probably get 3 people a week, 5 people a week that I don't know, or maybe that know me and that are watching, which is interesting, right? Because people are always watching, saying, I've been watching your commercial. I see you on TV. My kids hear it all the time at school, which is maybe slightly embarrassing for them. I actually had a lady from church the other day say, how much do you make every time your commercial runs? And I'm like, do you mean in terms of how many deals we might get, or how much do I get paid? She's like, well, don't you get paid every time your commercial runs? I said, well, I'm not an actor. I actually had to pay the stations. She was serious. She was dead serious. She was like, "Aren't there? Don't you get paid for doing your?" I said, "No, we paid a lot of money to be on there. We're hoping that the phone rings." It's kind of funny, but
That's interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
perspective.
So
Okay, I love
just
that.
the two brands now. Just the two brands.
Got it. So that's your outward fit. That's your direct. That's your marketing, right? Funnel essentially. And Kendall Partners
Yep.
is the operating HQ operations business. I love it. So that leads me to the final question. Um, what's this destination look like? Is there a destination, right? What are you building? Like, what's the long term vision for Kendall Partners?
Man, it's a great question. I was hoping you wouldn't ask that. No,
Well, it is. It is hard because things change, right?
they do.
But there needs to be a North Star, I think.
Yes, great point. Great question. I do think it's important, and it becomes more important. Um, I believe, my opinion, I think it becomes more important as we've. So I've set the stage with you that I've told you about how great our team is, and I'm not saying that just because I own the company. I'm saying that because they are good humans, and so for that reason, because of our core values, growth being one of them, we want people that want to grow. And I don't mean that they all want to grow because they want to add more houses, but I want them to be lifelong learners. I think that's
Hmm.
what leadership is, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And we all lead to some degree, whether you're at the top or you're in the middle or wherever you're doing, but whether you're leading your children or the local church or the baseball team or whatever, you got to lead yourself. Um, but I think because we want to be growth minded always, personally and professionally, I believe it's more important now to continue for me to set a higher goal or that North Star, like you said, because I think that people on the team really deserve it and they're
Hmm.
eager for it. They get really excited around setting, it's that stretch goal. I'm pretty good about moving the goalpost. And I don't try and do it weekly or monthly, but I mean, like when we're getting close, I'm like, hey, just a few more, just a few more.
Hmm.
For those of you that follow Ed Milet, he's got that book, just,
One
the
more.
power of one more. Yeah. And it's
That's
just
that's
interesting.
our that's our word this year. One
It's
more.
interesting. I haven't read his book, but I listened to his podcast leading up to it. And he was going through talking about the power of one more. And I thought, man, so simple and so surreal, but in practice, is it easy? I don't know. Not always.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so to answer your question directly, I'm actually working on a bigger goal. I think we'll buy around 200 houses this year for us in our particular marketplace without us expanding territory and just staying in the Chicagoland area, what we like to call the metro. I don't think that buying 500 houses is out of the question. I think that grabs us quite a bit more market share. And I think that what I really wanted to do without scaling chaos was have a really good foundation and a really good team, core
Mm-hmm.
values, et cetera, and build off of really, really sound leadership and then take it to the market. Now that sounds good. And as you know, easier said than done, because as soon as you build what you've put together, when you build it, the market changes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
timing is everything. We're having a good time now. It doesn't mean in 18 months it's a good time, but I want to build something that is built to last. And yeah, so I think going after about 100 extra houses per year for the
Mm-hmm.
next 5 years is where we're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And once you know your funnel and how many people it takes to kind of do that, it's not really a one-to-one anymore. I do believe that our scalability is not going to come down to process. I think fine tweaks, 1% changes to the process make all the difference. And then adding really good people, high quality people into the process is what does it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just from my experience. While me looking out beyond that, making sure that I can navigate the roadblock or at least the speed bump that's a quarter mile down the road.
Mm-hmm.
That way I can, because not everybody's operating in their own day to day. I want to be making sure I'm looking way out. That's my job. And so I feel the challenge of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to be part fortune teller.
Totally.
The data will help you make those decisions. You'll see it. You'll see inventory creep up. You'll see conversion slip. Um, and
And I think
so
the data, I think you're right. I think the data, making data driven decisions I would say is what we do pretty well. There's a lot. I hate to say really good because there's always a lot of room for growth, but I think that we watch that information pretty closely. And I don't want to live in a vacuum because of just our own market. Might be a little bit different than yours, might be a little different than Phoenix, et cetera. Of course it is. But we're watching current national trends, government being probably the biggest risk, my opinion, just from the levers they control. But yeah, we're watching all of that and trying to be really, really good predictors. And we'll miss a little bit. I just don't want to miss a lot of it and have to close it all up. So it's not really my concern. I don't really spend a lot of time looking backwards, but I think that the lessons we talked about, the 2 deals we lost on, that's fresh in a lot of people's memories here because they're still here. They've been here, you know, a lot of people 10 years. And sometimes I joke with them by saying, you actually can't answer that question properly because you've got so much scar tissue from the past. And that's good because that builds that muscle memory. But sometimes you get tainted by your decision making because of, you know what I mean, past
For sure.
wounds. You're like, ugh.
Oh, I definitely think I still have PTSD from 2008, right? And I have PTSD from the year 2002 in technology, right? I was young and I owned a tech recruiting business, and that was, you know, that was brutal. Like we had to let go of 11 of our closest friends, right, during that time. And that business survived, and that business still exists today. But man, did we learn a lot in 2002. And I sold my portion of the business to my best friend, who now actively invests with me in real estate. And but yeah, that's still fresh in my mind. 2002, 2008, right?
I don't think you ever forget about that because that's the story. That's the journey, right? And so you've got an impactful and a powerful story, just as like mine's unique to me. I'm not ever looking to forget that. I just, you know, you use a little bit of that as you make decisions, of course, because I don't want to be the guy that continues to do the same thing over and over and just, so I think we learn and we pivot a little bit. So yeah, the market will change. We want to make data-driven decisions. There's lots of information out there that a lot of good resources out there to look at and to follow and to listen to. And you can't wait forever. You can't, you know, if I didn't want to, like we're building the team for now, but we're building it to last for a long time. So we're really focused in on making sure we're set up for the future while taking advantage of current environment, you know, and continue to grow. So yeah, we're going to be aggressive and try and do it the right way and build it, you know, as a viable business for years and years. And I'm hoping we can have this conversation in another 15 years about what it looked like.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You look back. I love it, Matt. Well, thank you for sharing with us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
If people want to get a hold of you, right, how do they find you online? You know, we'll make sure that we connect everybody, but just give a shout out to your favorite place for people to connect.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook. I don't know if that ages me or not. My kids also know. My kids always said no one uses Facebook anymore, and I'm like, what? So I don't know. That's a good place because there's only one Jeff Nydegger, I think, on Facebook. I don't know, maybe. Jeff at Kendall Partners Ltd.com. You mentioned the websites before. Our outward-facing marketing lead generation website, jeffbuysyourhouse.com. And then our main core website, which you'll find all of our team on, all the information about our business at kendallpartnersltd.com. Those ways are probably the best. If you can't get it that way, you probably can't find us or you're not trying hard enough. But Google us. I hope if you just don't click on our ads because no, I'm just kidding.
No, but go look at the reviews, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, man, thanks so much. I appreciate you sharing some time with us today.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Sure thing. Take care.
Yeah.